Welcome to the Condo Pod, brought to you by the Canadian Condominium Institute, Eastern Ontario Chapter. This is your go-to space for all things condo in Eastern Ontario. From governance and legal updates to maintenance, management, and community living, we're diving into the topics that matter most to condo owners, directors, and professionals across our region.
Let's jump right in and meet our hosts for the
Condo Pod.
We're going to start off with Mike Lewicki. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Nancy and Josh. I'm excited. I've been involved with CCI since 2012. Actually, Nancy was one of the reasons I joined. I saw her at an event as a seminar. She spoke, and I was like, "What is this condo world?" It was exciting, and I'm really looking forward to this. I explained CCI to people as like Star Trek, so I'm a huge Star Trek fan. And I say that when you're a Trekkie, you get it, and you're in that world, and you're all in. When you're outside the Star Trek world, you don't understand it, but you're intrigued. So I'm really hoping to make some new Trekkies out of everybody in this condo podcast.
Fantastic, Mike. And I agree with you. Once you get wrapped into CCI, you just love every moment of it. It's like we all drank the Kool-Aid. All right. On that note, I think one of our other wrapped up in CCI people.
The new Kool-Aid drinker.
The new Kool-Aid drinker. All right, Josh, welcome.
Yeah, so definitely new to the CCI. I would say I'm probably one of the newer people even in the condo space. Only really been in the industry for about 7 years. But I think that there is a opportunity for a new breath into providing that level of advice to our owners, to the clients that we serve, to the professionals in the industry. So I've kind of really wanted to lend my skill set and expertise in the tech side of things to help, push forward the new media to make sure that we can still reach those audiences that are changing and growing with us, and look to help try and drive people to the importance of CCI. As a manager in the industry, we need knowledge, we need information, we need support. And the first thing that I was brought into was like a CCI lunch and learn. And you go there and you start talking to these professionals that have, decades of experience in some instances. And I just go, wow, like these people are fantastic. I get an opportunity to learn from the best. And I get to network with these people and experience that. So yes, I fully support CCI. I think it's wonderful. And I'm just excited to be able to continue that aspect in a new medium.
So we have a lawyer, we have a manager, and we have a real estate broker. There's a lot of things we can talk about in this room here today. So why don't we do that? Okay, we already heard from Mike about how he got involved in CCI. Why don't we now find out how we got involved in condos? And I'll start very quickly. When I first applied to my first ever job as a lawyer, I applied to the condo group. I'd never heard of condominium law. I frankly didn't know it was an area of expertise. But I thought, wow, this will be a stepping stone into something that may be more interesting or exciting. Well, lo and behold, within about 3 weeks of working in the condo world, I realized it has nothing to do with a purchase and sale. It has everything to do with anything and everything that can happen in the world, but in a microcosm of society. And I was hooked. It's family law, it's criminal law, it's human rights law, it's a little bit of everything wrapped into one, and I never looked back. So that's how I got started in the industry. How about you two? Let's start with Joshua.
I mean, mine was I fell into it, to be honest. My background is, at one point in my life, I wanted to be a police officer. And I grew up in a smaller town.
You do kind of do a bit of policing in the industry.
Correct. So I grew up in a smaller town, and I thought, okay, well, I need to get some experience in this world to be able to do that. So I moved to Toronto and started working in security, as one does when they think they want to be a police officer. But I ended up in corporate security. So not just, the standard kind of security guard mentality. Like we worked in a 2 million square foot facility. I ran a team of 15 people. It was, you had your day-to-day operations, but you also had to deal with, the tenants in the corporate space and kind of move through. And eventually I grew out of shift work. And I also realized that my personality trait wouldn't fit what a police officer really needs to be. I knew that I just cared too much in certain areas to be able to disconnect from some of those pieces. So I was actually providing access to a contractor into one of the suites because they were getting ready to build it out into a new office. I said, "You guys hiring?" And he goes, "No, not really." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm looking for something. If you have anything in the world, let me know." And a couple months later, he called me back and he said, "Look, we really need somebody to help us out in the health and safety side of things in construction." And I said, "Okay, well, I could be your health and safety coordinator, and I'll be the guy that goes around to the jobs and tells people they need to lock the wheels on the scaffold and, no stilts and all those fun little pieces." And eventually I got into the project management side of the world. And my first job was actually building out a laboratory for one of the universities in Toronto in a heritage build. So the stress level was through the roof. You couldn't put a screw in the wall without having to fill out the right kind of paperwork. I was still quite young, so I realized that I was in the deep end and it wasn't the right fit at the right time. It was too much stress. So I moved to Ottawa.
Too much stress.
Yeah.
A little bit of foreshadowing to what's going to come down.
What my addiction is. Yes. So we moved to Ottawa and I started working in fire prevention. And that was a complete opposite. So the way I always explained it to my friends was that I was driving a Formula One race car and I moved to Ottawa and I was in a golf cart. Slowed right down. Everything slowed down. I was in fire prevention. So what ended up happening was one of the previous firms that I worked for, their heat detector failed. So I got dispatched because I was on call. I went and I met with the assistant GM and I was like, "Look, the heat detector's failed. It's going to take me a bit to replace it. Then it's going to take some time for the system to reset. If you want to grab a cup of coffee or whatever, it'll be a few minutes." And she was like, no, I'm okay. I'll just hang out with you. It was after hours. She wanted to make sure I obviously wasn't going into the wrong spaces. And we got talking about condos because they're a condo management firm. And so I explained my background. I explained what I was, how I got to where I was. And she went, "You'd be a great condo manager. You've got, the skill set of the security side of things, the due diligence. You've got high-rise construction. You've got, fire prevention. You're very personable. Have you ever thought about being a condo manager?" And I have no idea what condos are. No idea.
Sounds like it's similar theme here.
I only knew that they were basically apartment style living. That was my mindset at that time. So I kind of hemmed and hawed on it, and we had a few more conversations about the industry and what it could mean professionally. And I said, okay, I'm not. There wasn't enough stress in fire prevention on the day-to-day side of things. So I said, okay, well, I need something a little bit more engaging. And I decided to jump in. So I started as their receptionist and, really had a great opportunity in that role to meet the contractors in the city, really understand who the players were. I had that frontline experience of dealing with owners when they come in and they're frustrated or they just want some advice. And then eventually kind of climbed my way up to the management side of things. And I connected with my now mentor and she put me on the path that I am. And then eventually I saw a gap in the marketing world and decided to start my own.
And I think we might have your mentor on at some point, Debbie. Yeah.
Hopefully.
It was a little bit of a foreshadowing yet on Debbie as well. One thing I find really interesting, Josh, as well, you started out with a criminal bent.
Yeah.
I actually practiced criminal for a little bit and realized that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny if you think about what we're dealing with now. It's not that different sometimes when we're dealing with infractions and breaches. Now, I guess it's a little bit of it is different in the sense that nobody's going to jail. But sure.
And I don't get to carry my handcuffs in.
Right. There you go. But at the end of the day, there is a little bit of everything in condos. And
yeah. So I think the one thing that kind of continues to drive me, and not to monopolize the mic too long, but every day, the thing that keeps me going is I want to make sure that people feel safe and secure in their home. So it allows me to keep that mindset that I've always had the drive to make people feel safe. And if I can do that, make them feel safe in their home, then I can go to bed and sleep peacefully at the end of the night.
Mm-hmm. And that is the big thing in condos. Condos aren't just an investment. Yes, they are probably the biggest investment for many people that they're going to make in their life, but they're also their home. And that's, I think, a topic we're going to explore quite a bit in this podcast is that dichotomy of it's your investment and it's your home. And then actually let's call it a tripod, because then you throw in the fact that it's also a workplace.
Correct.
So we're going to have a lot of discussions about that on this podcast. But before we do that, Mike, let's hear about how you got into the condo world.
So I did promise many people I would not be too controversial to start, at least for the first one. So for our company lawyers, I will be nice. In real estate, there's little to no education around condominiums. The industry considers them under residential like a house, which they are. I got into business year one of my first ever clients, like, I want to buy a condo. I said, fantastic. And I went to my office and people in the industry and they said, oh, it's like a house. Our training had one chapter in a book to talk about condos. It had one paragraph that noted special assessments should be considered when placing an offer. Not who to talk to for the record, just they should be considered. So I was looking around, trying to figure out, I was interested in this condos because I come from a business background and I liked structure and process. And the more I looked into it and called managers and people, I was like, this is a really interesting world and a niche within real estate. And I kept talking and people would bring up to me CCI, this and that, ACMO, different organizations. And I realized as a business person, there's a huge avenue here. And also I love to educate. So I found there's a great opportunity to educate and make a living. And so within our different brokers and that, I ended up training and supporting people within a couple years of only being a realtor because nobody was doing it. And as you both said, you kind of fall into it, but you fall into it because you want to. You just keep going deeper into the world of condos. And that's why like this podcast and, Josh and I were speaking this morning and Nancy and I have spoken the years. It covers so many facets of people's life, but it's also like when you drive by that office area, like what's going on in there, you don't know. And it's an exciting thing to be brought into.
Yeah.
So for me, there's always something new to learn about condos, always something to better yourself professionally or people who you're helping in the industry. So that's how I got into it. And as my coworkers joked, they said, your obsession with condos is like your obsession with, the crime side. My books I collect are, I love organized crime and mafia. So my wife thinks it's amusing. She goes, you're in real estate and your entire book collection is of every organized crime family. I'm like, well, it's very similar. So yeah, that's how I got into condos.
Crime and condos. It's really kind of funny how it seems.
Well, that's why Lawyers Guns and Money really attracted me initially, because I was like, I'm like, this is a switch bait.
Your logo could be right here. Your brand could be featured in multiple episodes of the Condo Pod, reaching condo managers, board members, and industry professionals across the region. Be part of the voice of this rapid growing community by becoming a sponsor today.
Yeah.
It seems to be a common theme here, but going back to what you just said, this is why I stay in it, right? Because every single day I want to know what's going on. So maybe that's something else we could all talk about. Why do you stay in the industry? Because there is a lot of stress. It's a high demand job. It's hundreds of emails a day for everybody who's in the industry. No matter what portion of the industry you're in, it's hundreds of emails. And you feel like every day you're really trying to do your very best to help everybody. Yeah. So what keeps you going? So for me, I think twofold. One, it is different every day. I come into the office and I have a task list of the 50 things I want to accomplish today. And by the end of the day, I look at that and maybe 2 have been accomplished, but I've had 10 other things come my way, from fires to hoarding to a safety and security issue to just a bylaw that needs some interpretation. And it's just so fascinating to me that every single day is different and I never know what's going to fall on my plate, and that keeps me so engaged. That's one part of it. The second part of it is I love the meetings and I love the people. And I love going to a meeting where there's a situation that it's a crisis in the community. And if you can take that community to the other side, that when you leave the meeting, people are leaving and they're looking at each other and they're smiling and they're feeling a little bit more in harmony. That keeps me going every single day. I just love to see crisis to resolution in 3 hours or less if we can. Not always possible, but if you can, it's great. But helping people, I think that is what maybe drives all of us. It's a community and an industry where you really feel like you can help people. Mike, Josh,
to that point, I mean, I'm involved as an insider and outsider, and what I like about the condo community is there's a framework of the rules everybody has agreed to, but out of that, each condo has its own neighborhood feel.
Yeah.
Each, whether it be a townhouse complex beside a mid-rise, a high-rise, or a stack, they all eventually get their own personality. And I find it exciting to go to events And when I work with clients, I would say, look, this community is this one, this one's this one. And by default, they tend to attract those people, right? And then the lawyers, the managers, the engineers, they all adapt within those communities. And I've worked with each one of you and seen you talk to people you work with, and you can see how you adapt within that personality of the condo.
Yeah.
And I find it exciting because the rules start at that turnover meeting, so to speak. Here you go. Here's your condo setting. You're all in. And it evolves because of the community, right? It isn't, there's outside influences, but at the end of the day, that AGM, the directors, the owners, it creates within the will of the community.
Yeah.
Which I find amazing when you can drive down the street and see 10 or 15 different buildings and know the personalities have created this environment that they all get along, and that they don't, there's a mechanism to resolve scenarios, right? So you're right. The emails are crazy. The calls are crazy, but it's that 1 or 2 emails or calls a day that I can get someone to go, I get it. That's where you get hooked for me. It's the, oh, thanks. I now understand what that means. So that's my hook.
Yeah, I guess like the challenging question of like why I stay. And sometimes I do ask myself that.
I think we all do, late at night.
Third email. Yeah. I mean, really, it comes down to being able to help those people, like I mentioned earlier before. To Mike's point about community, one of the things when we launched our company was that we wanted a community-focused approach. We wanted to make sure that we're trying to remind owners, specifically at the board level, that, you know, you're making the decision on behalf of all of the owners. One of the things we always talk about with residents when I'm talking to them one-on-one, you know, there's this mentality of an owner versus the corporation. It's like, well, no, like all of you collectively make up the corporation. There is no versus. You know, one of the things I say to my board members, which they're not always happy about, is like, if an owner asks me how to overthrow the board, I'm going to tell them how to do it. Like, that's my job, is to tell you the mechanisms you have in place to support your community. The part that drives me to keep coming back is it is fresh all the time. You always have something new. Each community is vastly different. You could have the exact same declaration, you know, makeup, the exact same bylaws. You could have the exact same 100 rules, if that's the thing, and those two communities would be vastly different. I really enjoy getting the opportunity to help people with their concern, their problem. Their project, as we like to call them. We don't call them problems, we call them projects.
I like that.
So they call
positive way.
Exactly. A lot of projects. So they'll call us and, you know, or they email us, so a lot of emails, but they reach out to us, and it's our opportunity to help that person. So that's the part that keeps me coming each time. You know, there's challenges in the aspect of people don't fully grasp what they've bought. Sometimes they'll come into a condo space and they're shocked that they have condo fees, or they're shocked that, you know, oh, I need approval to do this particular type of renovation. And I really enjoy being able to kind of show them, okay, well, here's the part that is this is why it is. Here's how you can kind of challenge that if you want and go through. So it's a puzzle every day. I think one piece that we'll definitely get into in the future is that challenge from a manager's perspective. Like, how do I triage and time manage all of those requests in a community, right? If you have one condo community that's 200 units, that's 200 families that you're supporting with 200 different goals, 200 different financial positions,
200 different projects.
200 different projects. And I, as a manager, need to be able to adapt, like you said earlier, to all of those different types of communication styles, all of those pieces. So it is a true skill set to be able to manage the day-to-day operations of a property. But I stay in it because I get to help people at the end of the day.
Sounds like that's the commonality again, is just helping communities from crisis to resolution, whatever the case may be. It also makes me think of another question that I often like to ask people who are in the industry is, what would you change if you could? I have a list that's far too long to go through of the things that I would change. One thing that I think would be super helpful is something that Josh, you've already touched on, which is early education that this is not us versus them in a condo community. You've touched on the fact that owners may have the mentality, oh, the board is after us, or the board, may feel that it's the owner saying it's us versus them.
Yep.
And I really wish there was a way that we could figure out how to harmonize everybody right from the get-go to realize that we are all together in this. We're all in it together.
Yeah.
Let's try and find a way through, whether that's through education, such as a podcast like this, or whether it's through individuals when they purchase understanding a little bit better that they are the corporation. The number of times that I get asked at a meeting, well, who's the corporation and can't we make them pay for this?
Right.
And your response has to be, yes. But the unfortunate reality is that means that if you want the corporation to pay for it, you have to reach into your own pocket because you are the corporation. And I think that piece is missing often when owners purchase. Like you said, they don't understand they bought a condo, they don't understand they have condo fees. So if there was a way that I could, pass a magic wand or flip a switch to have everybody understand when they join the condo that we're all in this together, I think that would be something I would love to see happen. Anything from the two of you?
I mean, I'm going to agree on that education point. I think that similarly to how I have to get a license to manage the property, if I had a magic wand and could change the world, it would be that you have to pass a certain type of understanding type test when you buy into a condo. I know that's, it'll never happen. And it's
we're using magic wands today, so we're good.
But the idea of giving that aspect to there, I think the other thing that if I could change something in the industry from a manager's perspective, and we've all talked about this, while not recording, is that there is a misunderstanding on the manager's responsibilities and roles in condos, and it puts a lot of pressure on the manager to try and find the resolution when that's outside of my scope. There was an example where, somebody needed a new key to their unit. The governing documents outlined that the key to the unit is an owner's responsibility. All they have to do is provide a copy if they're not keying it to the master. I set them up with the right vendor to be able to do the work. And the owner goes, well, you need to do all of these pieces. You're the property manager. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to do all of these things. And I'm trying to explain, well, actually, this is your responsibility. Here's the paperwork that shows that, I'm not, yes, I'll have my boots on the ground to go in and make sure that things are being done properly. But it's not the same idea as a property manager, which we were talking about before we started. I think that it would be really nice to find ways to communicate that, this being one of those mediums, to really showcase the professionalism that I'm doing. Like I explained it to my friends, I'm running multi-million-dollar businesses. That's my role as a manager. Yeah. I'm there to make sure the maintenance is getting done, that the financials are on track, that your reserve fund is doing its pieces. Oh, and then you have the proper governance to protect yourself from the future. So if the Gen Pop could understand that, I think it would alleviate some of the pressures that managers in this industry are feeling that lead towards burnout and not wanting to stay in the industry.
Another topic I know we're going to dive into in the future, and I think that is a really important point, and maybe it is partly our responsibility to work on changing the dialogue.
Yes.
Changing the dialogue from property manager to condo manager. I know I'm very guilty of it. I'm very guilty of it because we've used property manager for, the 23 years that I've been practicing. But we do need to think about changing that wording because property manager, you think of managing a property, a unit, a home. A condo manager is exactly what you said, Josh. It's managing an asset. It's managing a multi-million-dollar corporation that has pieces and investments and a whole bunch of things that need to get done.
Yeah.
Very, very different. So maybe that's something we can work on in this podcast is changing the dialogue to recognize condo management for the professional industry that is different than property management. Very different.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I will say on behalf of the real estate industry in North America, and I say this, and I welcome any realtor to call me out on it and say I'm wrong because it will not be a good conversation on you.
You said you weren't supposed to get controversial, Mike.
Oh, that's not controversial. That's just what Mike says every day at the office. I bring that up because when condos are sold to the public, it's set it and forget it mentality.
Yeah.
There's a manager to deal with it. My Amazon package is coming in, take care of it.
Yeah.
The lawyer's job is to figure out why this owner's not listening. We're not engaged. We're the board. We're very busy. And then when somebody goes to buy it, because there isn't an education, now they've created the licensing now, there's a CEO, there's a registrar, but they're trying to play catch up. They're trying to play catch up from when the Act came in 90, it started in 98, and before that when condos existed. They're trying to play catch up to educate the public and then hold the industry accountable. Well, the industry is doing both. And I'll use that example. Somebody buys a condominium, they're sold in the flash of it. The fee is only $100 a month. Well, it's not a condo yet.
Expect that to legitimate.
And the builder has their role in it. The government has their role and I think what it comes down to is, again, I'll keep plugging CCI. We educate and advocate. Like if you buy a car, people will spend months looking up the car. They'll read the contract. They'll compare the motor size. I don't even know what engine I have in my car. I turn it on, it goes forward or back. Other than that, I don't know what it does.
Well, it's not going sideways.
I was going to say, you might want to turn left or right.
Well, we'll try that on Tuesdays. People buy an iPhone and they'll ask everyone in the sun about which model to buy, the camera. We were at the store the other day, my wife bought a phone, they're talking about the camera. I'm like, just point and shoot. People buy a car and go, beautiful.
It's
Look,
pretty.
got a
like
parking spot, they sign the paper. So I would say it does start the litmus within the real estate industry to educate and advocate and be that support mechanism. And there is a responsibility legally under our act and just ethically to be that right conversation. Josh and I have spoken, and I know talking to Nancy is, I tell people what the role of the condo manager is, not a property manager. And it goes back to that the public has to take responsibility as well.
Yep.
They have to understand what they're buying. And I find that because a lot of the condo is abstract, here's your rules, here's this and that.
Yeah.
They don't physically see it, especially new condo. They get a nice picture to buy. They don't see the building.
Yeah.
So that's been a battle I've fought for years and many in the industry have. And you end up dealing with repercussions of the lack of the knowledge.
It's a good point.
Right?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So it all comes back to education. And that's the framework on which CCI is built. So I'm really excited about this podcast. We have a lot of hot topics that we're already thinking about: professionalism, safety and security, governing documents, touching on some of the key industry experts, finding out why they joined, what they're doing differently, what they want to see changing. So much coming down the pipe. What are you two most excited about starting this podcast?
This podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of our amazing annual sponsors: Ellie Associates, Upper B, Davidson Houle Allen LLP, Eastern Ontario Property Management, Sentinel Management, and Keller Engineering. Their commitment helps us bring you important conversations, industry insights, and resources that strengthen condo communities across Eastern Ontario. Thank you to them for making the Condo Pod possible.
It's the opportunity to share that information, right? Like some of the guests that I have lined up, specialize in certain maintenance things. Obviously, being in the manager side of things, like I'm going to lean into my skill set. And I remember when I came into one property once, we were talking about kitchen stack flushing.
Very exciting.
And they're like, right? But at first, kind of glance, they're like, okay, whatever, it is what it is. Some people, there's conspiracy theories online about kitchen stack flushing.
What?
Yes, there's actually a website, dedicated to the conspiracy theory of kitchen stack.
It's Friday evening. What else?
What else are you going to do about recondos? So I have somebody that specializes in kitchen stack flushing that'll come on, and he also has a very interesting idea on how to evolve that process. So it's not just flushing water in the system. It's like, how can we make sure that this is a preventative maintenance program? I want to make sure that with this medium, we have an opportunity to provide some, long form content in the podcast, but also getting those like short little pieces for people so that when they're on a coffee break and they're just curious about condos or just trying to get into the industry, they can kind of digest that information very quickly. So it'd be nice to just have some of those little one-off pieces. I think the other thing that I would really like to be able to do is to get to know my colleagues better, right? There's a lot of people that I have, weekly conversations about.
Sometimes daily, depending on the issue.
But I don't.
Oh, the project. Apologies. Yeah.
But I don't get the opportunity to understand what drives them in this industry. So when I was, talking about the podcast very early on in its infant stage of what it would become, that was the part that excited me the most, is that I want to see what drives people to this industry. From the manager side, we feel that we're in a crisis of keeping people engaged and wanting people to become managers, even though some people disagree with that concept. I won't name names. But the fact that we can showcase that this is a great industry to work in, that we have the opportunity to help families, which is very important, and be able to get that information out in a digestible format. That's what really drove me to want to be here.
It's exciting. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, and I also just want to take the opportunity to thank CCI Eastern Ontario and its board members for giving me the opportunity to sit behind a microphone, because everybody knows if I get one.
I think it was a no-brainer for us. You're so passionate about the podcast and so passionate about this project in a really exciting way. So we're just delighted to have you on this. So Mike, how about you? What are you excited about for the podcast?
Honestly, for me, for the podcast is we all look at the nuance of the meetings, the minutes, the processes, the act, and we can look beyond the abstract. I can read the act and see what its intention is. And this gives the physical representation of the act and it's real. Like, if you think about it, really, Nancy represents the corporation from the legal side, right? The structure that is like the cradle that holds the corporation. You execute the living embodiment of the spirit of the corporation, right? And it could be simply as we want to change the water fountain in the front to...
We want to take away the swimming pool. Let's not talk about that one, right?
We'll talk about Mike and swimming pools on the road. I used to work municipality and I cleaned public swimming pools.
All right.
I was single that whole summer. That's all I'm going to say.
There we go. Another topic.
That's a different topic. But then we are now able to provide the context, the live context behind condominium living. And to your point, if somebody is going through Spotify looking, what's this? And they hear one snippet and it hooks them.
Yeah.
That to me is a win.
Yeah.
If they're like, what is this world of condos? And something we said or a guest says hooks them, that to me is a win for that podcast. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Fabulous.
What about you, Nancy?
What am I looking? Well, I think I'm already experiencing what I'm looking forward to. Just a fantastic conversation, everything to do with condos, meeting my colleagues in the industry in a different format, and delivering information to our membership in a way that we never have before. We're evolving, we're changing the dialogue, we're trying to be more engaged, and I think this is the way to do it. I think people are going to be really excited to get in their car and listen to us or watch us, if that's the case may be. And if you look at, I just glanced down at my phone, because that's of course the new watch these days.
Exactly.
Right. I used to do this. Now I do this, and it's also been like an hour or half an hour already.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to wrap this up, and I don't want to. So that's what I'm really excited about, is the continuing dialogue and getting to know more and more about the industry and the people that are in the industry. So on that note, I think we have to wrap this up.
I think it's been a great start to my Friday. I haven't checked any of my projects on my phone, but I think this has been a great day to start it, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a lovely opportunity, and I'm excited for what the future holds. The three different personalities that we have and the expertise that we bring to this industry will allow us to have those resources and share them with people. I think, having those candid conversations is part of that missing piece. It reminds people that may be tuning in that perhaps, or even some of our clients, we're human.
They're just people.
That's right. I'm just, a person walking around. I was going to use a different. Now, I was like, wait a sec. They may not like that one. Yeah. I didn't pass that by. There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to be candid and show the human side of what we do for these clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So on that note, folks, we hope you've enjoyed our first ever intro podcast. There's so much coming down the pipe. We're really excited about it. This is the launch of
the Condo Pod
from CCI Eastern Ontario. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for tuning into the Condo Pod, your source for all things condo in Eastern Ontario. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more resources and upcoming events, visit us at ccieasternontario.ca. Until next time, stay informed, stay connected, and keep your community strong.